My name is Ken Thompson, and I'm a game developer and researcher at the University of Connecticut. And this is part of my research. This is Project Slingshot. It's an anti-vaping intervention study. It's in collaboration with Dr. Robert Astor. He's an associate professor in the Department of Psychological Sciences, as well as the expert help of our graduate students, Emma Atkinson and Skylar Sklarnik. This project's also funded by the SFA STEAM Innovation Grant, which we're really grateful for. It's a great place for some funding so that we can move on to bigger and greater things, hopefully, as our research develops and we have something to test. So the first thing I want to point out here is the kind of behind the scene things is that there's a little data field in the beginning. This is a data collection module, and it's initialized by an ID number. So when we have a player come in, they're going to be assigned an ID number that is anonymized but allows us to track multiple sessions. And we just put this in per user, and it exports all the data in the game to a CSV file, which is like an Excel file, but in text document. So just a bunch of commas, basically. The data tracking tracks every object in the game, in the scene, as well as the player head and hand positions. We're sampling this at once per second or once every couple seconds, depending on how well things are running. So we can tune that if we're running into slowdown issues, as well as any interactions that the player makes. The player is going to pick something up or touch something or throw something. We're going to track that and timestamp it and know exactly what position the hand was in at that time, and etc. This will be really useful later on when we're going to be looking at data and seeing if we can find any parallels with maybe the way players use things, or when they get things. Perhaps there's a way we can extrapolate from the data, either confusion or other kind of emotional states. Not only that, but also just kind of the basic nitty gritty of like how long a game plays and how long it took them. So all objects in the scene, I'm going to initialize one of the two testing conditions, which is our tennis ball control group. For now, we have some other vapes coming in a little bit, but all objects here are throwable. All objects are throwable, and they conform to the VR hand shapes, which was implemented by Emma. Very much thank you, Emma. And also you'll note there will be a counter on the hand. This is the tally, the score. We initially had some scoreboards up, but we found that this is, maybe a little bit less user-friendly, and people were kind of looking for where it was. So we just kind of put a little UI on the hand. We have about 200 objects per test condition, but the player is challenged to find only and throw 60 of those objects, so there's plenty more to do than needed. There's no reason for them to find every single object in the scene, merely to be engaged and hopefully from that enter, a state of flow. So the environment here is a set of pre-purchased assets. Links will be down below, arranged by Emma, and each room has a randomized spawn point so that when players are coming in for subsequent tests, they're going to have a lot less chance to memorize their initial object locations. So I'm going to turn on the vapes now. Just so loading both objects kind of bogs down my frame rate a little bit, but the player would not normally see this. You're not going to see both test conditions at the same time. But you can imagine the data tracking then doubles, 400 objects, etc. So you can see we have a couple of vape models in mirrored positions to the tennis balls, and when thrown, instead of bouncing around, although they do that a little bit, when you'll see bouncing them off walls if you're really, really close, and then they'll explode on the ground. Generally, they explode and give us a little bright explosion particle effect. We can also knock objects around with our hand, and then they return to their original position. We selected this because it felt a little bit more tactile and real, that the object, even though they are floating, that they are a physical thing the whole time, instead of floating through. So each of the objects will return to their original position, but the script itself is flexible, so you'll notice that it just warps back after a given distance. This is flexible. We can make this farther away, allow it to travel more. So if we wanted to do something with objects, we could make that happen. Or we could also set this to a factor of time, so it might return after 3 seconds or something. Flexible for test conditions, and as we play around with things and see what users need, these kind of things will change around a little bit and we tweak things, but we want to make sure to build so that we can implement things quickly later on. So that's about it right now. We're going into our testing phase, made more challenging, of course, by new sanitation guidelines. VR headsets are basically a shared helmet people put on or a shared hat, I should say, that they put on their head and eyes. But we've got disposable covers and sanitation supplies ready to go, and hopefully this will lead to bigger and better intervention research using VR. If you've got questions or comments, post them down below, or if you'd like, you can email me. Happy to answer questions offline. I will put my email down below as well. Other than that, thanks very much for watching, and let me know what you think.